in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
So, what would you like to talk about this Saturday, the 8th of August, 2015? 2 and 1 equals 3 plus 5 equals 8. So you got an 888 today. So I got my coffee. And I would like anyone to call me, or not actually call me, just contact me at Solvinur. That's SOLVINUR via Skype, so I can drag you in here. Because to be honest with you, I don't know what you guys want to hear. I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. It's like everything has already been said, right? Maybe talk a little about the psychological problems that people may run into when doing research regarding what's really going on in the world. I don't know about you guys, but it sure did have a huge impact. The most difficult one to get rid of is the anger or slash rage. What's going on, Jules? What's up? That, yeah, the rage, the anger. I don't know exactly what I don't know if it's rage or anger, or maybe something in between. Because the control that has been put on all of the people is taking away your own life, right? At least that's how I see it. It's you've been presented with a fairy tale which is supposed to be reality. And, you know, I've said this before, like, if you want to get somewhere, have an effect, then you should know what reality is, else your actions will not have the desired effect. That's why I've claimed in the past that people don't act. It's they're running a program, right? That's not acting, and it's surely not free will. Some people claim that there is no free will. And there's this one philosopher, and don't remember his name, but he gave a lecture to all these people that came, and the people that came already had high esteem of this guy. So they were easily fooled. And he gave a speech about free will, and beginning with the speech he gave his definition of what free will is. And I totally didn't agree with that. Now that's not what I would define free will as. However, what happened next was that he made like 1.5 hour or 2 hours, something like that, story based on the premise that he had, based on his definition of free will. And there was nothing wrong with that. There were no logical fallacies, there were no lies, there was no deception, right? Except for the fact that his whole idea of what free will is flawed. He basically sees human beings as machines, like the medical industry does. Right? But so if you are running a program, then you can also not really speak of free will, can you? And most people are running a program. Let's see. Let's find my tools here. This. So that's one thing that's being taken away. Your free will. It's like choosing Pepsi or Coke, right? And I was just listening to Colbert, who had a guest on about technocracy. The most simple explanation of that is rule by experts, but it goes way beyond that. This is a economic takeover, resource-based, UN Agenda 21-like economy. So, I don't know if you guys had heard that the event show, whatever, I made regarding the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It's worse than the Dutch one, and the Dutch one is very bad. Alright, so that's one thing to get very mad about, right? If you realize that your whole life is just running a program, like a computer, basically. And that's also one thing about the trivium. You can also see that as a computer-like an analogy, input, processing, output, where the input is your data, right? Your basic building blocks, which is your grammar. Processing would be the logic, and the output would be the rhetoric. Rhetoric being the use of that which you've understood. Right? Rhetoric is like a mixture of grammar and logic. This computer thingy is taking over a lot of people's lives. When I go to work, for instance, you see a lot of people, as soon as the break starts, they take out their telephones, which is much more than a telephone these days. There's so many applications on it, it's really amazing. And also I find the size of these things, like they're really small compared to my PC, and it can do almost as much as my PC. In fact, it can even call people, right? My PC can't do that. So these computers have been very much integrated into our lives. And there's also a lot of movies out and series that are preparing people for a microchip implant in your brain, for instance, or in your hand, or wherever. They had some problems with that. I'm going to name one source, Catherine Albright, who you should, in my opinion, not completely trust. She's tied to the startpage.com, and she made a deal with Google. When I used it very shortly, and I found out that even though my browser is supposed to give only English links, English language links, the advertisements that I get from Startpage are in Dutch, right? So they do check your browser and see where what language it is set to, so they can personalize the ads coming in. So I don't like that. I know I expect Google to do things like that, but if your whole idea behind Startpage is, well, you're anonymous. Well, no, apparently not. They check your browser to see where you are at, so they can customize the ads. But anyway, she came up with this whole story about implanting chips. And I'm not sure when this exactly was. I think 2007 or so. The people that had volunteered to be chipped turned out to get cancer from it. So they had to go back to the drawing board and hold off with that agenda for a while. But, you can see how controlling people is very much tied to, getting a chip in your head or your hand. So, second call, just contact me at Skype and let's make some radio, shall we? My name is Solvinur, Solvinur, and if you contact me, I will drag you in, and so we can make some live radio. Anybody from the chat wanna do that? Dan, Captain Gringo, Grump, Anok, Grumpy, Hopper, Jules, Matty Clues, Liza, Road Dog, and that's about it. So, I've started playing a little bit of poker. No Limit Hold'em. Totally different topic, I know. It's nice to do. Sunday nights we go to the bar and we play some No Limit Hold'em. It's good. You can really tell the different characters that people have reflects in their play. Right, so I know, for instance, from two people that regularly come there, I know how they play, and that can help you very much trying to win chips. Right, so there's one person, for instance, there who's a real gambler, right? And so that reflects in his play as well. If you raise him, there's very, very little chance that he's gonna fold. Right, so if you know that, then you can adjust your play with him. There's another one, and that person got raised and folded with ace king. And so, you know, okay, so this one will throw away good hands if you raise. You can also adjust your play on that. And it's really nice. You get to play with real people as opposed to all the online no limit hold'em poker that's going on, which is nice to learn, but first of all, I don't like it that it's a computer that's actually generating the hands. And second of all, you don't see the people, so you can't, you know, like make tells. You know, some people get very nervous, for instance, if they get a good hand. So you know when to be careful or not. Yeah. That was just a story in between. Everybody got their coffee? And another psychological effect of getting to know what reality is really like is a kind of questioning, like, what am I gonna do now that you know? It's like you start asking yourself, what actions should I take to be able to function, you know, anymore as a normal human being. I have a lot of trouble with that, well, not a lot, but some trouble with that at my job also, because I'm working with people that are running a program. I know exactly what they're gonna say about specific topics. I know how they are going to react to specific claims. And so it's really boring. You can't really have a conversation with these people. It's really tough. And so you get like very pretty lonely, right? There's nobody to talk to, and even in my neighborhood there's nobody that I can talk to. There's one friend that I have who I can talk to, but even though he agrees with me about certain topics like the total control that is being played on us, and the economic scam that's going on, but still he's pro New World Order, and I'm like, well, that's kind of double think, right? So, yeah, tough. So why aren't you guys calling in? Don't think I have the telephones linked to me, so you have to do it via Skype. Solvinur. Send me a message and get on air with me. All right, jumping to another topic. It's one of my favorite games, or at least it used to be, especially in the beginning years, which was like 2004 or so. Is World of Warcraft. And the maximum level that you could reach then was 60, and that lasted for years. It was really good. You couldn't easily gear yourself up so that you could engage in the most difficult encounters. It was really tough then. There was a lot of work to do, a lot of people to get together, at least 40. And so you would go on these 40-man raids to engage in the most difficult battles. And by the way, I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure. Actually, I am suspicious, alright? But I'm almost sure that those games are being tracked. And they want to know how you react to certain things. They're tracking the chats, because there's a lot of chat going on also in those worlds. And it's kind of like a virtual reality. And there's people that wake up, they turn on the computer and log on, right? And they do that every day, especially if you don't have a job. You know, that's the life that they lead. It's this computer business has transformed the way humans communicate with each other. It's more online, especially for the young people. It's more online socializing than going out with your friends to wherever. So anyway, so World of Warcraft has told us about the next expansion that they're gonna have. Right, so maximum level 60 was like in 2004. I don't know exactly what year maximum level 70 came out, but that was a pretty nice expansion as well. New challenges to be met. The raid size went from 40 to 20 or 25, I don't remember exactly. So it was a bit easier to actually form groups of people and go out on these quote-unquote missions, right? It's a military term. Then the next expansion, the maximum level was 80. That wasn't so well received by most people. 85 was the next expansion, was also not very much appreciated. Next level was 90, maximum level was also not so well treated, and a lot of things have changed. It's way too easy to become quote-unquote powerful on a PvE level anyway. It's, PvE means person versus environment. There's also PvP, or person versus person. There are basically two different ways which you can play. And the next expansion was maximum level 100, which is what is up now. It's version 6.2. The last patch was, and they managed to bring some new content again. However, it's still way too easy, and the real hardcore players like we used to have in 2004, most of them have left the game. There's only like 2 or 3 maybe people that I know that still play it. And so now they've come up with the next expansion, which is a maximum level that you can reach is 110. And they've introduced a whole new continent. Usually they do that with these expansions. And that I will try. It's always nice to level up again, see the new worlds that they've created. And I play it because I want to get my head around something else. It's kind of like escapism, I suppose. And it really works. If you're busy exploring new areas that you've never been to, the new thing is always attractive. And especially the class that I play is Rogue, and you can sneak through enemy lines without being seen. There's a cat who can do that as a druid form. You can also do that, but his stealth abilities are not as good as that of a rogue. And so it's really nice to sneak past those lines and look at the territory, find new challenges. So I'm probably going to be playing that again for a while. The last game I played was Diablo 2. There's also Diablo 3, which is from the same company, by the way, which is called Blizzard. And Diablo 3 is again too easy. It's not really that hard to become quote-unquote powerful. And it's less of a challenge. I think that they are tailoring the game to younger people to try and make it more easy for them. And well, that's too bad for us, like older people who really like a challenge. And so I went back to Diablo 2 because there is some challenge in there. And that's only if you play the hardcore mode, because there's also a softcore mode, and then if you die, you just walk back to your body like in a ghost form. And you can pick up your stuff and nothing really happens further. But the hardcore mode, if you die, you lose everything. You lose your character, you lose your items, you lose your levels, everything is gone. Even your stash, in which you kept items that you need in certain circumstances, it's all gone. So that's a challenge. The next challenge is also that not for some people, you can see the other people's progress also. They've reached level 99, which is the max level there, in like no time. I don't know how these guys do it, but it's really amazing. The character that I play there is an Amazon. I like the Amazon and a Sork. But Amazon is, I like it best, I like it better than a Sork or any of the other possible characters like Paladin, Barbarian, and Necromancer. And there's also a kind of Assassin. Don't remember the name at the moment. It's level 8-7 now, I think. And the further the higher level you get, the harder it is to get more experience, so you can level up even more. So that's another challenge, stay alive till you're 99, because if you die, you have to start all over again. But that's old. That's really, really old. It's so old that I can't even play it properly on my new computer, because it's not compatible with Windows 10. When Windows 10 was in beta, I tried it and there was no sound. Now that Windows 10 has come out, there is sound, but I don't know, it just plays very crappy. It seems like it's lagging a lot, not on the internet, but on the screen. It feels like dragging through mud. While on my other computer, Windows 98 or XP, I'm not even quite sure which one it is, there it plays just fine. So I got two computers up here, one of them to play, and this one is more for the email and stuff, and doing some research if needed. So that's one of the psychological effects also. You, at least I do, try to escape this madness that's being foisted upon us. So, let's see. Anybody, third call, wanna call in? This is UCY.tv with the Solvinur Event. You can reach me at Skype. SOLVINUR. Solvinur. Just send me a Skype contact request if you're not already on the list. Otherwise, if you're already on my list, please do send me a message that you want to be on the air, and I'll drag you in the conversation. Right? Some of you must have something to say, right? Today I went to the stores. We have a small shopping center in the neighborhood. Because my sister, she asked me to help her with getting files from little movies that she made on the iPad on DVD. And I was like, okay, this can be tough, she didn't know how to do this. And we figured out that if she had sent these files in email to me, I could try and burn these on DVD. So she sent some files, and I went to the shopping center to get some CDs, some DVDs to burn it on. And I went there and I bought this small package, and the seller, he told me that there is, how did he call it? Copyrights fee is, I guess, the best that I could translate it as. Copyrights fee of, what was it, 60 cents or so. And I'm like, why is this copyrights fee? He said to me, well, you might be, planning on burning illegal content on there. So I'm like, okay, so I'm prejudged now, right? This is pre-crime, right? I have to pay more because there's piracy going on, right? found that really ridiculous. You're already judged guilty. You have to pay this fine to be able to buy DVDs that you want to burn content on. These are just, small movies, some of them as much as 10 seconds or so from your children. And she wanted those on DVD. Yeah. So you're already presumed guilty in buying DVDs that you want to burn on. And so I told him, like, well, why should I pay for people that commit crimes? I haven't done anything wrong. And he's looking at me, well, yeah, yes, sir, but, I have to. Yeah. So when all was said and done, I said, well, please don't take it personally, but, this is just rubbish. It's nonsense. So, did you guys enjoy last week's Solvinur event? Let's see. Blah, blah. And this one. Put that in the chat again. Let's see. Blah, putting it in the chat. Now there should be some link there. I don't know where exactly. Blah blah. Where would it be? I can't find it. So I'll open my email here. So click send. That would be this one. Then reply. And where is her address? Where is her address? Here it is. And this one, copy that. Alright, if you want to get on the newsletter, you send an email to that, which I paste now in the chat. It's hard to pronounce. Kulisi or something at gmail.com. And they don't send out many newsletters. Well, maybe once every couple of months or so. But that's the email you want to send a request to get on the newsletter. What's that? Dan. About dating artifacts. So, that was my coffee. Should actually get a new one. Nobody wants to talk on air, huh? Let's see what we can do here. Is this the one I want? Nope, this is not the one I want. This one. And find another video here. Let's see what we can do. Is this one good? No, it's not a good one. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see what we can find. this any good? Let's see if this one is good. I don't know who this is. Doesn't seem to be Poker Face. Let's see what we can find on their website, right? Pokerface.com. Da, da, da. There we go. It's a nice site. Let's put it in the chat. YouTube's. Let's see if we can find anything that we can play. We've already heard Freedom Palooza, guys. I watched that already also. This one, let's see what this does. Yeah. Let's do this one. Time for a break, guys, so I can make some coffee. Here we go, Poker Face.
We are Poker Face. The song's called I Want to Know. Anybody tell you what's going on? Did anybody show you went wrong? Future's burning in the sky, they are your signs. Did you do it for the money, what price for your soul? I just want to know what I do fighting for. Got to the light, shine on me, got away. See the leaves slowly from the trees up on the ground. I see you trading sides, but this time you're wrong. Look at your reflection in the mirror, I do like what you say. There's a target's how well do you know who you can count on now? I just want to know what's on your body. Come to the light, shine on me, we recently had elections. We like to call them selections, because we never get the vote for who really is the good candidate. We had a brother by the name of Jake Town who should have won it. But unfortunately, we have a two-headed beast called the Republican Party, and they suck, because they're fucking tyrannous, and they're all for the global order. Never have I seen so many lucky people in this world that I have. Don't let the last man's go rise and rise and say, put the rain and darkness. Yeah, it rains well behind you, all do you live away? Trying to comprehend what's going on, you need to lean on the rail, right now. What's on the friends? I just want to know what's on your fighting for. Come to the light, shine on me, you got nowhere. I just want to know what's on your fighting dream world. Come to the light, shine on, little God's glory.
Check it out, pokerface.com. Good site. So yeah, then the claim that is being made by mainstream scientists about the age of ancient structures, I don't trust for one bit. You know, I'd rather go with the theories that Robert Schoch is putting out. If you take a look at Sphinx, for instance, the base of it, it has water weathering on it. And, you know, that had to have come from a time before it all turned to desert. Also, if you check the ancient Egyptian pictures that they made themselves, there's trees on there and all kinds of animals, like ducks, for instance, that you wouldn't expect in a desert-like surrounding, right? So it all has to be much, much older than they claim it is. I've had what's his name? John Anthony West on also like a year ago or so, a year and a half ago, I don't remember. And he also is very suspicious of the claims being made by these Egyptologists that they are called themselves professionals when they won't look at the evidence that's being presented. Yep. So yeah, I do think that it's much older than they claim. However, there are claims out there by Indian people, for instance. I don't mean Indians in America, but people from India. And they hold very high their books, which are usually known as the Vedas. The word Veda could be responsible for what later became known as Wicca. There is a etymological tie there to substantiate that claim. Right? So Veda became Wicca, which becomes wisdom. And you know, those claims are really pretty much too much out there to be taken literally. Right? It's too much mythology in there. You can't take it literally. A lot of that mythology you can find back in the Bible as well, like Adam and Eve story, for instance. They called it Manu, the first man. They called Manu, M-A-N-U, and apparently their claim is also that that's where the word man comes from. So that might be true, you know, that the mythology about man's existence on Earth is used in later languages, right? But it doesn't mean that that's actually what happened. There's other similarities between the Bible and the Vedas. One of them is, for instance, that in the Vedas they have different yugas, as they call them. They are like time periods. And their claim is that in previous yugas or time periods, people lived much longer, like in the previous one 1,000 years, in the one before that 10,000 years, and the one before that 100,000 years as a lifespan for a human being. And so you find a little bit of that back also in the Bible, where you find that, these ancient people, they lived to be, 700, 800 years or so. Yeah. It's a nice story, the Bible. But as soon as you start taking those things literally, then you run into all kinds of contradictions. Right? Like, for instance, when, I don't know exactly who it was, Cain or Abel, that was sent away, and all of a sudden he got scared, said, well, what am I going to do if these other people find me, right? When supposedly Adam and Eve were the first human beings, right? So that's a contradiction, right? You can't have people already walking around and then claim that Adam and Eve are the first. I tend to look at the whole Adam and Eve analogy as groups of people. I believe it's also, I'm not quite sure. Let's see what I can find on that. Adamu from Wikipedia. Well, there's nothing here. King of Assyria after Tudia. Nigerian refugee. No. Let's see. Tudia is the earliest of Assyrian king named on the Assyrian king list, and the first of the 17 kings who lived in tents. Right, so what kind of king are you if you live in a tent? According to the George Roux or something, he would have lived in the latter half of the 25th century BC, somewhere between 2450 BC and 2400. The list says he was succeeded by Adamu. And there we go. Just a little bit more about Adamu. There are 3 extant cuneiform tablets versions of the Assyrian king list, and 2 fragments. They date to the early 1st millennium BC. The oldest list, stopping at Tiglath-Pileser, something like that, and the youngest list at Shalmaneser, something like that. Assyriologists believe the list was originally compiled to link Shamshi-Adad, 1700 BC, and Amorite, who had conquered Assur, to the native rulers of the land of Assur. Assur, it's interesting. Assur. Asura is also an Indian term. Scribes that copied the list and added to it over time. Alright, so there may be a link between this Adamu and the Bible version of Adam. I don't know for sure. Let's see if we can find anything else on Adamu. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. We can do this ancient. Oh, then it's already tied to aliens, right? Yeah. This one may be good. The Eden motive is a mythological counterpart of a cognitive phenomenon intrinsic to human and probably intrinsic in many other examples of biology, of biologically evolved life at similar stages of development. This phenomenon springs from the dysfunction and errors in computational engines of goal pursuit. Such engines are built around internal fitness metrics, and when these metrics become detached from reality, the engine pursues unrealistic goals. In such breakdowns, the metrics are often reified, so that the individual is chasing its own tail. Then they open brackets, transcendental meditation. Goal pursuit engines, such for minimal effort methods of progressing towards goal satisfaction, when the constituent mechanisms of efficiency and parsimony malfunction, the individual expects to be satisfied through unrealistic shortcuts. In short, the individual expects to be able to cheat. Whole families of human institutions and ideologies, including all religions, have sprung from these phenomena. The Eden motive itself and the biblical tale of the flood are in fact far older than the Bible, yes, dating at least to the civilization of ancient Sumer. In the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, 2000 BCE, King Gilgamesh's noble, savage rival and companion Enkidu is reduced from idyllic immortality to civilized mortality through hapless sinful union with a fallen woman. In a subsequent quest for immortality, Gilgamesh finds a magical plant in the sea, but is robbed of his prize by a serpent. Many other details of the tale are echoed in the Hebrew Bible. Eden is a Sumerian word for an uncultivated plain, so that Eden, reaching English by way of Akkadian and Hebrew through a chain of lexical borrowing, simply describes lowland geography, like that of a present-day southeast Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates meet. Incidentally, in ancient times they reached the Gulf separately, but marine regression has exposed a confluence. Alright, so etymologically at least, it is sound to tie Eden to Eden. Anthropology professor Juris Zarims has developed a thorough and archaeologically grounded theory of the Eden myth's origins. In an article in May 1987 issue of the Smithsonian, Dora Jane Hamblin articulated his theory. Eden, Adam, and the birth of writing. Yeah. This is also on here. Here, this is nice, right? Adamu is the name in Sumerian mythology for the first man, created by Enki, the creator god and inventor of civilization. Adam is Hebrew for man. Oh, is that so? And Adonai is Hebrew for signifying dust and earth. In the Aramaic, signifying blood. Hava, Hebrew for Eve, is Hebrew. In Hebrew signifies life. Yeah. In the Sumerian myth, magical food is the source of immortality, not the source of its downfall, and Adamu is tricked to not eat it. The gods tell him it's poisonous, and thereby remains mortal. The Hebrew biblical account also describes such a life-giving magical food, the food of tree of life, distinct from the forbidden tree of knowledge of good and evil. and it is chiefly to deprive them of the immortality bestowed by the fruit of the tree of life that God exiles Adam and Eve from the garden. The tale of Cain and Abel parallels tales in Sumerian mythology of rivalries between farmer and herder gods. Yeah. You find that in all of these older mythologies, a lot of fights between brothers. You can find that back also in the Edda, which sounds very much like Veda, right? But Edda is the Norse mythology. There's also two brothers having a war, and the Veda, at least the most well-known parts of it, are of course about the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is also a family having a war. This tree of knowledge and this apple is a nice story. The thing that bugs me most about it is that they represent a snake, which is nowadays seen as a bad animal, of course, right? Some might even call it Satan, right? Who's introducing Eve to eat from this apple. And what happens when Eve eats from this apple? She is instantly aware of the difference between good and evil. Now, why would, a bad creature do that, right? It's consciousness awareness, consciousness shift, a leap in consciousness to be able to distinguish good from evil. Animals don't do that, right? So you could say that this snake lifted humanity from an animal state of being to a human state of being. So why would, why is this snake painted so badly, right? It looks more like what the Gnostics, I believe, claim, is that it's God or Yahweh that is the bad guy here, trying to hold back the evolution of consciousness in human beings, right? So, anyway, don't take it literally. What I just told you is just one interpretation, and maybe not the correct one, but for certain not correct is taking all of this stuff literally. I was introduced to the Bible when I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. They gave me this child's Bible. And I don't know how long it took me, but not very long, because I read a lot of stuff in those days. And when I finished the book, I gave it back to my dad, and he said, well, what do you think of it? And I said, well, it's a nice story. And the people were laughing, there was a lot of family around, uncles and aunts. And they were laughing at me, and I was like, why the hell are you laughing? He said, you got any more of those stories? Yeah, it's a good story, but that's about it. Maybe they've expected me to all of a sudden become Christian or something, I don't know. Yeah. So later, I got introduced to the Vedas. I must have been like 18 or so. And they had more of a philosophy behind it. But this philosophy is based on things that you cannot see, hear, touch, smell, or taste. So you basically have to take it on faith, which is what Plato later also did with his world of forms. and the so-called perfect world. It's an idea from the Vedas that claim that the whole of creation, for lack of a better word than creation, is made of 3/4 in Plato's world of forms, and 1/4 material world. Right? So their claim is that there is this what they call absolute world, where things don't come into existence and never end. So that's why there's this word of creation is a bit strange, because if you create something, then it comes into being, right? And there's the contradiction also in the Vedas, that they claim that you, as a person living in this form of a human being, were once created in the so-called absolute world. So there's a contradiction there, because if it's in the absolute world, then it was never created. You were always there. Right? There are planets in this absolute world, which consists of 3/4 of the universe. And also the claim is that it's always expanding. Right, so you could tie that back to the universe itself, which does seem to be expanding always. In that way, the verhouding, how do you say that in English? How do I put that? In that way, the 3/4 heavenly or absolute world and 1/4 material world would stay stable, right? If the absolute world is always expanding and the material world is always expanding, then the ratio, I guess is the word, would stay the same. That's also a reason why some of these Indian philosophers say that God cannot know everything, because, they say, well, the Vedas themselves, they say that the absolute world is always expanding, so how can you know everything? It's impossible, right? And so in this absolute world there are numerous planets, too many to count, and all of them give off light by themselves. And so there's no need for a sun to bring light. And of course the light in the absolute world is of a totally different form of energy that we have here in the universe, in the material universe. The claim furthermore made by the Vedas is that all of the light, even the light coming from a campfire, emanates actually from the absolute world. And that's an interesting claim, because light is a very tricky subject, even in the material world. Especially with the claim that if you would ride a light beam and another person is also riding a light beam towards you, that the speed would not exceed the speed of light. So that's strange, right? How do these scientists make these claims that do not make any sense at all? If you are, let's say, on a train and the train goes toot toot, you know, you will hear it as it is. But for somebody that's standing away, the sound will have a higher frequency when coming towards it than going away from it, and so you hear a difference in sound, right? So why would this not go for light as well? Supposedly it does in a little way. They call that redshift. They claim that stars are, most of them anyway, moving away from us, because the universe is always expanding, right? And they make that claim based on the redshift, because the light that's coming from the stars reaching us seems to be teared apart a little bit, and so you get a redshift in there. For most of them, some of the stars have a blue shift, which means they're coming towards us. But that's only a very few stars that actually do that. And also, you know, I would like to say, because it just comes to my mind, right, that there are these claims out there by so-called scientists that say, well, for things to come into being, you have to look at them, right? So, you know, all of the stars and all of the galaxies out there didn't exist until somebody looked at them. You know, does that make any sense to you? All of a sudden, this ancient human being looked up in the sky and saw some lights, and poof! You know, all of a sudden these stars and galaxies and black holes and everything got created, right? Doesn't make any sense, does it? You don't have to look at something for it to exist. It existed probably long before you were born, even. Science today has strayed so much from good philosophy that it's no longer to be taken seriously, in my opinion, anyway. So, you guys still have 20 minutes left to call in, or to be part of the show, that is, via Skype. Contact me at Solvinur, SOLVINUR. You guys type a lot in the chat room. Why don't you just come on air and say it? You know, it's much easier than, you know, banging on a keyboard. Alright. So, these ancient structures, they are tough to explain, but that doesn't mean that there's aliens involved, right? Robert Schoch also does not hold this theory. And, you know, that there's millions and millions and millions of stars out there, and probably most of them have planets. You know, the chance that there is other life out there is 100%, right? There's even, I read that somewhere in the 1990s or so. I think it was a book by Nigel Kaldar, who had found this formula, you know, to be able to see if there's other life out there. And it was a very long formula, but anyway, the outcome was, yeah, 100% sure that this is not the only place that life has manifested itself. I would find that very strange as well. You know, there's even in very hostile environments like deep sea and in lava surroundings, life manifests itself. So even in places where there's no light, life manifests itself. Choop, choop, choop. Let's see. Some of the things that are mentioned in the Vedas are harder to debunk, so to speak, right? If you want to trust the translations anyway. According to mainstream scientists, humans aren't around for that very long, right? So things like silk, for instance, shouldn't have been around, but according to the Vedas, silk existed long before nowadays scientists claim that humans even started thinking as humans. And so the thing is that how could there be even any mention of silk in the Vedas if it wasn't there, right? These are the translations that not only just one person gave, but many persons have given from the ancient Indian language, which is Sanskrit. It's a pretty old language. It's probably not the first language. However, the interesting thing about that it's pretty complicated. Even the people there's people that claim, well, Sanskrit is the first language. Well, really? So how did that, come to be then? It's pretty complicated. It's a bit like Chinese. It's all these pictograms like thingies, right? You would start. You would think that language started with something like cuneiform. In Dutch we call it spijkerschrift. It's like we literally translated that would mean nail writing, like a 9-inch nail, right? That would be more sensible, right? For it to have started more simple like that, not with these very intricate and complicated pictograms. Blah blah. So it's difficult to distinguish between fact and fiction when reading the Vedas, because some of it is very interesting, some of it does make sense, and other things are totally insane. So if you ever do read that kind of stuff, just be careful. Always use your own reasoning and judging ability when reading ancient stuff like that. Try to spot contradictions. Because there's a lot of them. Not only in the Bible, but also in other ancient scriptures. It's nice to read though, the stories about Gilgamesh and Enkidu, things like that. Good nighttime stories, so to speak. So, we've got about 15 minutes left. What to do? Blah, blah, blah. Chaldea. Let's see if there's anything else interesting on this site. Oh, blah, blah. What's going on here? From the book of Genesis, we learn that the fundamental facts about Eden, by declaration and by reference to what is lost or changed after Eden, after Adam and Eve defied God. God is paternalistically watching and tending, and his attention does not waver for long. Apparent throughout Genesis chapter 2 and particularly chapter 3, 8, 9, 3 double dot 8/9, not slash, 8-9, and they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. You heard the voice of the Lord God walking. That's interesting. How does a voice walk, right? And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of God amongst the trees in the gardens. And the Lord called unto Adam and said, Where art thou? Well, that's interesting. Doesn't he know where they are? Since he's like God, Moral consciousness and wisdom, knowledge of good and evil, is the highest crime in the eyes of God, punished with mortality, yet is tempting and succulent, so can be avoided only through obedient vigilance. But of the tree of knowledge and good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. Yeah, that's also something very strange, right? God puts Adam and Eve in this heavenly surroundings, and then right smack in the middle he puts a tree and says, don't touch it, right? That's insane, isn't it? Why would you do that, right? For in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die, right? Now the way to, let's say not the way, but a possible way to interpret that is the death of the consciousness that is prevalent among human beings at that time, right? A more animalistic stage of consciousness that will die, right? Because animals don't have a sense of good and evil, right? 3:5-7. For God does know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them were both opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Right, so this nakedness also could link to a more animalistic state of human beings, right? One must show unquestioning obedience to divine commandment, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayst freely eat, but of the tree ... And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? How hast thou eaten of the tree, whereof I commanded thee, that thou shalt not eat. And he's asking that as a question. Again, why would he ask if he already knows? 3.17-19, and unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree, of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake, in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all days of thy life. Right? So, because man commits a sin, the ground has to be cursed. Right? Does that sound logical to you? Adam and Eve lived together as husband and wife in blissful harmony, naked as jaybirds, united as one flesh, yet childless. Children are depicted as a burden and a punishment. Eve owed no allegiance or obedience to Adam. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Yeah. 3.15-16, describing the changes after the defiance. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow. That's interesting too, right? Greatly multiply thy sorrow. What kind of God is that, right? And thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Does this sound like a period in time where matriarchal societies made way for patriarchal societies? In Eden they had carefree life, fresh and sublime, like new love, eternal and free of illness, with effortless natural plenty from the garden. As long as they stayed carefree, blind to the meaning of things, obediently unambitious, they could stay and keep all this. Describing the changes after the defiance. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us. Right? That's a contradiction also, right? Because didn't, like, in the previous chapter, it say created in likeness, right? Remember that? The man is become one of us to know good and evil, and now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Well, that's strange. Therefore the Lord sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. Alright, so this could refer to a time when agriculture was established. Right? There's tales of that also in the Veda with Rama, who supposedly taught humanity how to practice agriculture. Their relationship, this is next, their relationship to Eden was a preserver. 2.15. And the Lord took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it, not as owner. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Right? So here's the androgynous part of it. Right? And God blessed them, and God said unto them, by the way, this androgynous idea also comes back in the Vedas. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth. Replenish the earth? Why doesn't it say plenish? Right? And subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. Right? There's also 3 elementals in here, earth, water, and air. Right? Remember I told you about the elementals? Earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. Next, they were innocent of jealousy and violence, expressed by contrast. Right? That's something that bugs me also. They were innocent of jealousy and violence. You know how violent nature is? It's all death and destruction. You know? An owl eating the mice, or fish eating bigger fish, or a tiger, or, you know, even a cow eating plants. It's all death and destruction. What do you mean, non-violent? Expressed by contrast, example given in 4.3-8, and Cain was very wroth. I don't know what that is. And his countenance fell. Right. I don't know what that is. I can't translate that into Dutch even. 6.5-7. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. Wickedness of man, created in his image. And that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Evil hearts. So hearts can think now. I thought it was hearts that felt. So it's the better translation would have been mind, right? 6.11-13. The earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Which brings us to 1785. My bumper is gonna kick in pretty soon. Thanks for listening, Anok, Cap Gringo, Dale, Dan, Joe, what's up, buddy? Jules, Matty Clues, Otto, and Tomato. Who are you again? Iota. Thanks, people. I'll be back next week. Take care, y'all.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific